Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down and analyze the meta what's happening over Japan and how that impact our one. Happy Worlds Week. We have Worlds in just a few days' time, and today I'm going to talk about what deck I think will win the World Championships 2024 in Hawaii, just looking at the meta that's evolving in Japan and how it kind of transformed into our Shroud of Fables format the past few weeks on the online metagame. So in today's video, we're going to break down some tier lists which have been posted in Japan, looking at the main results, what have done really well in the gym challenges all the way until the end of July, then finishing off by looking at some results on Limitless. I know normally this focuses a lot on the results happening in Japan, but the meta has evolved a ton since it's like Shroud of Fables sort of debut in Japan and the likes. So I'm really excited to talk about this one, and I'm really excited to talk about Worlds. So if you guys are competing in this week, huge good luck, and I wish you all the best. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So looking at some what people think could potentially be a tier 1, tier 2 archetype, looking into this sort of breakdown, and on the Poker App book, which I use a lot for resources for by gaining any university leagues to gym challenges, they predict that Charizard and Reg Drago are the tier 1 archetypes. And again, this is exactly the same from my tier list video, which I released a few days ago. I personally think these are one of the strongest two. They work incredibly well against him. Reg Drago has such a powerful Charizard matchup, but there are multiple different attacking options. You have Kirim to get rid of all of their basic Pokemon. You have the likes of Raging Bolt, or now more importantly, Giratina to get these big two prize KOs on Charizard. You also have the likes of Dragonpole to get some setup damage. You have Legacy Star, it's so powerful. You even have Ogerpon as well as a good attacking option. Whereas Charizard has to do quite a bit. Even the likes, they have to use a Dusclops with the Defiance Band to get one hit KO on a Regidrago V-Star. There's a lot of things that Charizard has to do to keep up with them, but these two have such good match against the rest of the format. You think about how much Dusknoir has really helped Charizard. Yes, on the online scene, not performing as well, but how much Dusknoir adds for utility for Charizard. The amount of times that Dusknoir lets you take additional prize card, setting up, effectively putting on your opponent on odd prizes, so they have to go through still 3 Charizards to win the game, could even be the much better way of how Charizard can cope with this one. Or taking additional multiple prize cards. In Gardevoir, especially with Lost Vacuum, you can take multiple prize cards that way with Charizard. Against the likes of Raging Bolt, I think it works really well. Instead of them going 2-2-2, you can force them to take that extra 1 prize card and forcing them to kind of like boss around to take additional more prize KO, which I think is really strong. These two decks really have accounted pretty much everything. I love how much Regid Drago has become much more of this toolboxing deck. The likes of Kirim, especially sometimes Haxorus, really open to this deck, which I'm really a big fan about. Other decks which they think are tier 2 are other ones which I think round up the rest of the best 6 decks. Raging Bolt, Lugia, Gardevoir, and Dragapult. The reason why I think all of these are really powerful options, Raging Bolt is so fast and so aggressive, similar to likes of Reg Drago, it gained a lot from the release of Ogerpon. But what makes this deck much stronger in the new format is having likes of Serendipity. It is so fast out the gates. If you accidentally start with a 2-prize Pokemon, if you look at some of the format like Lugia and also the likes of Reg Drago, these have 2-prize Pokemon as their main sort of attacking option or draw factor in the deck. So kind of like, if they accidentally start this one, this is where Raging Bolt can really capitalize this one. It can be fast, aggressive, do 2 to even 400 damage turn 1, of how powerful their draw factor is. So that's one of the really scary things about Raging Bolt, how strong it is. Lugia, on the other hand, has a very good answer for likes of Regidrago. It's very difficult for them to KO multiple Lugias turn after turn, even if they play the Raging Bolt, or even the likes of a what's it called? The Giratina, they have to sacrifice a ton of energy to go through them. So that's why Lugia is really strong. Also helps you in the control matchup because it plays a ton of these switching cards like Jet Energy. Gardevoir, on the other hand, has a good Regidrago because constantly trade doing that on prize trade. Yes, they have a likes of the Dragapults for them to potentially up the price rate that way. But Gardevoir is so powerful, so aggressive. It can afford to go in the back burner and take a multiple prize card. The Monkey Dory really has changed Gardevoir to be one of the strongest decks right now in the format. And that's one thing I love about this one. In Dragon Ball, I know obviously Stellar Crown becomes absolutely unbeatable. But still in this format, I think it's incredibly good. And having it as a tier 2 deck, I really think makes a lot of sense. I put this out in a B tier category in my sort of tiers, but I think this is so powerful and so strong. The answer it has to pretty much get attacking out effectively turn 2 with likes of Upper Neo Engine, or even likes of Mela, the Pidgeot for that really good searching engine, as well as also for likes of Dusclops and Dusknoir, helping with the trade prize, taking out multiple prize cards on the bench, and pretty much this obviously forcing people to go back to the 60 HP Pidgeys. I know the likes of Dusclops really did, but can really capitalize on this one because it can always guarantee a KO that way. I think these work really well. I think all of them have a strategy and have a good win con against likes of Regidrago and Charizard, but I would say that Regidrago can go really hard into most of these other dark types. For likes of Kirim, it's really scary against likes of Gardevoir, hence why they always can use a Mana Feed, but Gardevoir I think has still a very powerful Regid Drago matchup. They use their Kirim things, they potentially would have used out quite a few energy switches. They might effectively not be able to get another attack going. So that's where Gardevoir can really capitalize on this one. And like some Charizard, because they need like sort of the Dusknoir Dusclops to try and get these big two prize KOs on a Raging Bolt or Lugia. Or even sometimes a Dragonpole, that's where they can really capitalize and kind of go back on them with that. So I think these are really powerful. And rounding up for sort of their tier list for their third one is Lost Box, Snorlax Store, and Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon did gain that Petron EX, which I think is very, very powerful for switching outs, as well as also you can even more Peko, have that guarantee that free retreater. But yeah, I think it's really good, especially in the likes of control. They in Japan love the controlling aspect of Snorlax. I do think this is very scary. If we look at those tops of archetypes, there might be one switch in Reg Drago, but they have Prime Catcher, they have Jet Energies in the likes of a Lugia and Churros in Gardevoir and Charizard. But effectively out from that, there's not that many switching cards out there. So that's why Snorlax can really capitalize. Go into the Worlds format where basically you do need to have those guaranteed get that basically 6 wins and 2 losses minimum to get into day 2. This is where I'm really worried that there might be lots of ties. Similar could be saying the likes of Lost Box. These could be very, very long and tiring games. The Kirim threat is really quite scary, but I think if you're a very strong Lost Box player, I generally think Lost Box is still a pretty good play overall. I think you can be very fast, very aggressive with Lost Box. And effectively, if you put someone into the Kirim and you have a guaranteed response to Reg Drago afterwards, you can have a really good time in this one. I think similar could be said with the likes of Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon is so fast, so aggressive, and not many people are playing Mist Energy. They might be in Lugia because they obviously are scared of likes of Dragonpole. It's both been Dragonpole and Reg Drago, and more worried about that. So that's where Roaring Moon can really sneak in, and it's a very, very fast deck. But as much as I would go, oh, it's much better. Roaring Moon is much better than Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt has definitely gone turn after turn after turn, be so much stronger, so much more reliable. So with this Poker Abbox, tier 1 to tier 3, do you agree with sort of their selections? I generally do. Personally, I think these are all really good picks. I think Regid Drago and Charizard is so powerful. Just if you look at all the matchups, they can absolutely dominate all of these ones. Yes, Sunlight's Control has a much better matchup into the likes of Regid Drago and like so Charizard purely by blocking them out, but aggressive rest of the field, not as strong. So if we look, we've already looked at this tier list. This is looking at pretty much the collected point selection at the gym challenges. And again, all these links are where I find them are going to be in the description below. And it's kind of looking at the whole sort of field, pretty much like a month and a half, which may gain the most decks and points. And we can really see here that Charizard is at the top, with Reg Drago beneath it, with Lugia being tier 1, collecting the most points overall. Tier 2 has the likes of Raging Bolt, Gardevoir, and Dragonpole, collecting just over 5,000 each. Tier 3 has the likes of Shenpao, Lost Box, Block Clax, Basic Roaring Moon, Agent Box, and Dialga. Then tier 4 with 1,700 points less, we have Roaring Moon, Miraidon, Goldingo, Lost Zone Tina, and Iron Thorns. A big change we can see here is how much Reg Drago really did have that huge impact in the later section of the format. I would definitely say right at the start it was Charizard Dusknoir all the way, and Reg Drago did have that late sort of resurgence. That's where the points aren't as high. If we look at then the online events, we can see Reg Drago is much, much higher than Charizard is and winning a lot more events, purely on the basis of how powerful Reg Drago really did become, especially in the later format in Japan and especially in our sort of format now in Triad Fable. Charizard had that explosive, that new sort of deck, especially the likes of that's why it's one of the most strongest ones. But again, we're seeing here the top 6 decks of what I think are, what loads of people are putting there are still here in the tier 1 and tier 2 section. These are so fast, so aggressive. What I love about them, 3 of them are evolving decks. And I think that's really nice to see. If we look back at Worlds last year, or even 2 years ago, evolving decks weren't as strong, except for the likes of Gardevoir really going to be one of the strongest decks. If we look at that Worlds, where Tor did come second place. But what for that, evolving decks, the only one was intelligent for searching options. We now see evolving decks as a pure main of attacking options as well. So that's a huge good change for what the Scarlet and Violet format has really brought to the deck. So I'm very, very excited to see this. If we look at the rest of the format, Shenpao, I generally think is still a very, very good pick. I do think it's very scared of Kirim in the likes of Reg Drago, especially also Reg Dragonpole as well. You're very, very scared of those decks. Pure on the basis that you might have to run Manaphy, and I've added Manaphy to my Shenpao, but effectively, I don't want to always be playing Manaphy every single turn, because Manaphy is so scary to start with as a Shenpao player because it's now a liability, especially against the control. You already have a bad control matchup. So that's one thing I'd generally be scared about with that Shenpao. I think looking at it, if you are doing any last minute testing or just wanting to know what deck could really do well and win, just think about these sort of decks here. Then look at the top 6. These ones here, what people are thinking about. Yes, there's lots of creativity. Yes, you can effectively build like a box archetype trying to counter most of these decks. But I think a really straightforward Charizard list, or even a very good guaranteed Gardevoir list, has a really good shout to do well in Japan. Sorry, Japan and Hawaii, purely looking at the rules in Japan. Now I've had a lot of talk about Japan. Let's change it over to our online tournaments. Yes, I know some Japanese players do in fact play this one, and also it's affected the meta so much. Let's look as of the day of recording, which is on Sunday. What is the best decks which have been playing well in the Limitless tournaments? We can see that Gardevoir is actually one of the most played archetypes right there, which is honestly a little bit shocking. I've seen Gardevoir do incredibly well in this style of format and generally makes a ton of sense. It is so fast, so aggressive in so many ways. But then if we look at the other ones around there, we can see likes of Raging Bolt has gone a little bit further down, likes of Lugia as well. I'm a big fan about how the meta is trying to evolve. Reg Drago is that version number 4 because it is so fast and so aggressive. That's one of the greatest things about this style of format as well. Charizard Pidgeot has definitely fallen down from the wayside just a little bit, but I think it's still a very good sort of deck to play around with. Again, we're looking at the top 6 and pretty much it's a guaranteed that, except Dragonpole is effectively number 8 because of the other sort of selection. Again, if looking at the snapshot for the last few months over in Japan, yes, I know it's not the guaranteed Shroud of Fables format, but we're seeing how much it's kind of changed and how much it's evolved. Gardevoir is so powerful, especially for NEIC, and it gets stronger in Shroud of Fable. Didn't gain a ton, but the likes of Pheasantipity and Night Stretcher really did add a lot of stuff to this one. Raging Bolt, again, Pheasantipity, Night Stretcher, even having likes of that Blood Moon Luna really gained really good strong things for this one. Lugia has a really good Reg Drago matchup, so it's obviously going to go much higher up. Miraidon, I think, could be another really good sleeper pick. I know I kind of like did an outtake pick and said, oh, it's going to be a rogue deck, but generally think Miraidon is a little bit rogue right now, but I think could do incredibly well as looking in this format. Again, we just see how the meta is starting to evolve in Japan, in our sort of as well with the Shroud of Fable. We are seeing the real big increase of Reg Drago, a huge decrease in likes of Charizard because of how bad it has a matchup against Reg Drago, and even likes of Gardevoir doing much higher because it has a really good Reg Drago. If Charizard is going to go down, Gardevoir is going to go up because it is that much stronger. Now I want to have a look at some of the top placing decks in this new format in Shroud of Fable on the online events, whether they won or come second or even top 4 in this style of format, just to see what kind of like new cards in Shroud of Fable and how it could really impact what list could in fact be winning the World Championship. So if we look at Charizard Dusknoir, this list that has won, and honestly there is a few really interesting techs in this one, and I want to know if you agree. They do play a 2-2 split of that 70 HP Charmander. A lot of people do love the promo one purely the fact that it has a really good attacking option, do 40 damage. If you aren't playing the likes of Lost Vacuum, this really helps in the Gardevoir matchup, clearing 1-for-1 prize, which I think is much stronger. Lots of people always use the Blazing Destruction one because it's obviously much easier to get to and has a decent effect, obviously, by attacking for 2 entities to do 30 damage, but 40 is still very good, especially with the setup. But again, we are seeing the likes of this 2 60 HP Pidgeys, but also 2 of the 60 HP Dust Skulls as well. Not really going with a 1-1-1, which is what a lot of people kind of go this one, but I really appreciate and really like the 2-1-1. In case you prize it, or effectively on one turn, you can go Dusclops and Dusknoir, or can easily set it up and not rely on using Super Rod to bring it back. One of the most interesting techs in this card is having the Canceling Clone. This tech absolutely gets walled by the likes of Mimikyu. Yes, you have Charmeleon, and yes, you have the likes of Radiant Charizard to kind of go attack this one, but it can be a little bit costly. Having Canceling Clone means you guarantee can attack this one, whether it be with a Pidgeot or a Charizard EX, and not relying like for Dusknoir or any of the abilities to kind of like go through this one. I still really love having a Temple of Sinnoh. Temple of Sinnoh I think is really good, especially against Lugia. Stopping likes of Legacy Energy is a really powerful sort of effect. If Lugia's been on the rise, Legacy Energy is going to be in a lot more decks, so kind of having Temple of Sinnoh is a really good tech for that one. Going with a 3-3 split of Arven and Iono is just a little bit sketchy. I much prefer on these style decks 4 copies of Arven. You can see here they have a ton of really key item cards, which they want to obviously play the maximum amount, so playing at Arven is going to be much easier to get that Canceling Clone and not relying on the Forest Seal Stone, and also for Arven gets you that Forest Seal Stone, gets you that Defiance Band in the early game to get those big one-hit KOs. Again, that's something which I would change, but effectively cut rid of the Iono to add to the Arven, but I really am intrigued by this Canceling Clone option. It's similar to the likes how Iron Lee's got into the Reg Drago list, so again, I'm a big fan of this Charizard one, and I can really see how this effectively build could be one that could in fact be winning. Now, if we look at the other side, Regid Drago, this one is very different to how we've seen some of them play and effectively could be a really interesting, unique approach to how they play this one. Again, we have here the most many of attackers. 2 copies of Dragonpole EX, 1 copy of Gucha, 1 copy of Giratina, that Lugia, so you can make sure your Dragonpoles can do that 7 damage counter one, as well as also playing that new copy of the Kirim and Haxorus. Haxorus I really like for that additional attack to do 230 damage. Yes, you discard the top few cards for your deck, but guaranteeing 230, not relying on any spread damage counters, and pretty much KO nearly every single unbasic for your EX is really, really strong. But an interesting card which they are playing is 1 copy of Noivern EX. This was in a lot of the early lists of Reg Drago. Well, if you don't know what Noivern EX means, if you use this attack, you can't be damaged by basic Pokemon. This helps you a ton in the likes of, if you look at the not in the Charizard matchup, but against Raging Bolt, against the likes of Roaring Moon, sometimes even some Lugia matchups as well. It can really help slow down multiple decks as well, which I think is a really good inclusion. But against other ones as well, it's a much slower approach. You're only going to be doing 70 damage, and if you want to reduce stuff, use Gudra. Boost up your HP quite a lot by reducing and tanking lots of damage, which I think is much stronger. Again, we are seeing a canceling clone because you really need canceling clone, because otherwise you have no answer to mimic you. Lots of people are like, oh, we can have the likes of what's it like? Radiant Charizard could be a really good attacking option, but again, that's only in the late game and stuff like that. But I really do like the canceling clone option because it also opens up the Kirin play as well. So again, stuff like this is very, very powerful against the mana feeds. The rest of it, I think, is very, very straightforward. Having a 4 2/2 and then the 1 copy of Churro, basically you can reutilize likes for Lucha, remove any liabilities, and of course, pick up your Reg Drago and B-Star after you reach the Kirin, so it's not going to be a liability in the active one. You have the likes, like we mentioned, for the Iron Leaves. People are using that one because it basically has that little bit of a Russian retreat option. Bring it out if the Pokemon has some if you have some damage, energies around there, bring it out. Yeah, again, it's a pretty good attacking option, but also you can use that by moving some energy on that one and using it to retreat. So you're not just stranding the likes of a Reg Drago V-Star with no energies on. So that's something which is very interesting to kind of play around with. I do think this list needs quite a little bit of work with the fact of the Noivern and Haxorus. I don't know how strong they're really going to be in the world sort of format. If we are expecting lots of Gardevoir and the likes of Charizard, Noivern could see a little bit of play to help in Gardevoir, but the likes of Kirim and Dragonpole I think are much stronger than those sort of matchups than having 1 copy of Noivern EX. The other top card, of course, is this Gardevoir, and this one here is definitely focusing more on the TM Devo. Talking to lots of players, seen online in the discourse as well, people are going back to the TM Devo play, and I generally think this is really, really strong. The TM Devo, because you're playing lots of setups with spread damage counters from the likes of Fluttermane, Screamtail, and even Monkey Dory, sometimes even Grosselia as well, kind of using the TM Devolution. Pretty much make sure you can take these multiple sort of prize knockouts, especially with the 4 copies of Arvins you can guarantee searching. One of the most interesting cards they play here is 1 Klefki and 1 Greninja. The reason why I think it's very interesting is because Klefki also has a little bit of a hindrance. If Reg Drago is potentially going to be one of the most played archetypes right now in the format, kind of guaranteeing that giving them effectively an on-site cancelling clone, stopping them likes of your mana feed if it's in Klefki's in the active spot, is really counterintuitive. That's one thing I really do not like about this list. Similar could be said about Giratina. Not Giratina, Greninja. Greninja is very powerful, one of the strongest draw factors in the game, but also you have Curly, which is always a guaranteed discard and not relying on the likes of an NG. Yes, you want NG in the early game, but having a Greninja in the having it in the active spot, well, it's not a psychic type, so all of a sudden it's a huge target for Storm. Also, after you go use all your energies, it's basically just a liability on the bench, which can be gussed around with and is taking up these valuable bench space, which could be your second Monkey Dory, or even likes of additional attacking option, or draw factor in likes of a Curlier. That's one thing I do find, especially from my testing, that really Greninja is not needed as much in Gardevoir, purely from my testing point of view. The rest of this is very much straightforward. They have a 7-3 split of energies, 2 artisans I really like. I'm obviously a big fan of the Red Candy. I've been praising that and telling everyone, 1 Red Candy in Gardevoir is so powerful. The amount of times you can bring out a Gardevoir EX and still have your Curlies out for your draw factor is so powerful, especially in the late game as well. You can have 2 rocks down here, they target the other one, the opponent might think, okay, they're going to go Curly, then they're going to do Gardevoir. You can just bring out a Red Candy, search out for Marvin, all of a sudden you've now got Gardevoir out and play, you can streamline all your attackers. I'm a big fan also of having 1 copy of Bravery Charm. The amount of times that Monkey Dory can set up these multiple huge attacks from the likes of Drifloon and Screamtail, you don't need to rely on it as much. This is a TM Devo play, so you've got to get multiple prize cards this sort of avenue as well. Big fan of Gardevoir. I think it's looking very, very strong in the metagame, but some changes in this one and some worry about it is likes of Klefki if you are that scared of Reg Drago. Lugia as well, I am a big fan. It's the return of the rats. This is the best way the Cino build. Pure on the basis it can get these big one-hit KOs on Reg Drago, Dragonpole, and Charizard, which is definitely where this deck can really struggle. We are seeing here they are playing the Wellspring Ogerpon, so again, you can take these additional sort of prize from this, the other effect of the attack, but also is a really good sort of block sort of factor as well, which is not too bad. The Iron Bundle as well, teamed out with Iron Hands, so scary. 2 copies of Carmine. I really like, because in the early game this could be so aggressive, get your Archeops in the discard pile if you're going first, which is very, very strong. And of course, Blood and Green Luna, one of my favorite cards in the game right now. I'm a big fan of this one. There's not too much to talk about Lugia, just effectively they are playing obviously more copies of Mist Energy, protect them from Reg Drago, and obviously a high count of Jet Energy, so we don't lose immediately to Storm. I think still Jack is still good. It's Jack plus Ultra Ball, just guarantee you can get rid of 2 Archeops, plus potentially getting your Lugia at the same time, or an attacker is just very, very strong. Not too much talk about Lugia, but I think it's in a very good dominant position. I think Iron Bundle really makes sense, and definitely going back to the Cino build and not relying on the likes of the Earthen Vessel, 2 Iron Hands, Basic Energy, and the likes of Weird Ear, I think is a very, very good thing, because Cino plus Legacy Energy effectively means your opponent might have to potentially miss a turn of attacking because of how powerful that deck is. Now let's look at Raging Bolt, and this is a very different build to how we've seen some of them play around. It plays one of my new favorite cards, like Blood Moon Earth Luna. This is really strong because you can pretty much like Energy Accelerate straight into this one. Play some Energy Switch as well, move them away, power up with Raging Bolts, which is really good. Also, it's a secondary attacking option, especially in the late game, if you have some damage counters on there, as well as also really, really powerful as a single prize attacking option against like some Mimikyu or any of these block sort of style decks. Yes, a Noivern EX absolutely shuts off his deck so badly in the Reg Drago. That's why you might potentially need to use the counter catcher boss sort of play. But you do only play 1 copy of this one. Penny as well for additional healing factor and bringing up one of the Pokemon that might get gusted is very, very strong. And the Lost City as well to remove any of these scary decks. For example, a Mimikyu, so you don't literally lose a game from that sort of way. I think this is a very, very interesting way how they're playing Raging Bolt. Again, there's some things which I might not personally play. I think the Night Stretcher works well with guaranteeing the Urshifu to like constantly like bring that out again. But Ursaluna, sorry, not Urshifu, but again, not entirely sold on this one on the list, but I think it's a really interesting, unique approach about how Raging Bolt and even from the new cards have evolved overall. And finally, let's look at Dragonpole and how this has really kind of changed the meta. And we can see here, we are still playing the normal sort of thing, a 4-2-3 line Dragonpole, a 2-2 line, 202 line of Pidgeot EX, but also that option to play the 50 HP one. This can be a little bit scary, especially from how powerful Dusclops could potentially be, or even in a mirror match, or even Reg Drago, because they can guarantee can easily KO this one and set up a one of your Droopies on the bench. So again, something to be considerate about, but I think Core Family in this style deck is much stronger. A 1-1-1 line of Dusknoir, especially with the likes of one Super Rod, is really, really powerful, but also Radiant Alakazam to move around some damage counters as well on the opponent's side. The rest of these one, you have some energy acceleration, you have 1 copy of Mallow, 1 upper Neo energy, and then 1 power pad. So you still have multiple ways to kind of like power up your Dragon Pulse before we get the likes of Crispin in the next set next month. And also one thing I really like this one, we have the Kyurem and Defiance spell to do additional more damage, effectively making Phantom Dive do the maximum output of 260 damage, which is really good, especially with some spreads and damage counters as well. You can do that around there, then use the Phantom Spoon and Painful Spoons and Radiant Alakazam to pretty much KO the likes of Reg Drago, which I really, really like. The rest of this deck, I think, is a really, really clean style deck. I think the TM Devo, again, makes a lot of sense, especially in the high account of Arven decks. A 3-3 split of Arven and Iono. Again, I always love a heavy account of Arven, but I think the deck how this works, I think it's really good because effectively you might have a lot of dead hands, so Iono to refresh and chuck the bottom of the deck is really, really good. And of course, Collapse Stadium to remove any of our liabilities. Rotom, Lumineon, and Pheasantipity, they're always going to be around on the bench, especially Pheasantipity in the late game, so removing them away so your opponent can't get these easy 2 prizes is really, really strong. So kind of looking ahead, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. It's a little bit different by looking at some of our meta as well, because it's evolved so much since Japan one. Looking at some of the Japan lists from effectively 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's already evolved so much. How well will Reg Drago do at Worlds? It is obviously dominating right now in the online scene. For the last few months, it's done very, very well in Japan, also right now. And it's only going to get stronger as the format sort of develops. I generally think this could be a top 8 deck and guaranteed potentially could be the most played archetype. It does obviously have sometimes people might say, oh, it's a high ceiling level or stuff like that. I think if you miss your attack turn 2, you have a very high chance of not winning the game, and I knew that, especially from doing some mirror match testing. So it's definitely something to be considerate about. Is Dusknoir enough for Charizard? we've seen Charizard kind of like fall for a little bit from grace after being put on the pedestal being one of the strongest archetypes. But that's where Reg Drago has really come around. And likes of Gardevoir as well, kind of like having that increase in play because Charizard is not seen enough. I think these are definitely the top 3 decks in that sort of format. I think Gardevoir can beat the odds. Obviously, it has the allegations of it kind of going a little bit slow to play at times, but I think some of the Gardevoir players are going to be testing it. They're going to know when they're going to be using all the multiple plays. I think the Monkey Dory, the Team Devo is a much stronger sort of version of Gardevoir, and I think it's a really good pick for the World Championships. Any of these 3 decks, I'd be very, very happy to win, and I think these are one of these 3 decks to really keep an eye on. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'm going back, I think tomorrow or Wednesday for my prediction video. As you know, I've done lots of polls online on YouTube to try and like figure out what people think are the best sort of decks to play at Worlds, kind of like people's thoughts and feelings, as well as also some hot takes and a real recap of my tier list at the end. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to like, subscribe, comment down below. What deck do you think will win Worlds in just a few days' time? Good luck to everyone competing, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.